You open your banking app. You stare at the number. $3,842 in savings. $1,200 in checking. Investments? Basically nothing. And every time you think about investing seriously, you tell yourself, I'll start when I have more money. Meanwhile, you see headlines about people hitting $500,000 portfolios, $1 million net worth, retiring early. And you think, how are they doing that? I can barely save a few $100s. If that feels uncomfortably familiar, that's literally most people. If you're someone who is stuck or stagnant about personal finance, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because here's the thing. The first $50,000 you invest will feel 10x harder than the next $500,000. And it's not just math. It's psychology. It's identity. It's lifestyle design. And today, we're breaking all of it down. Let's challenge something right away. Most people assume investing gets harder as the numbers get bigger. They think, it must be stressful managing $500,000. It must be complicated once you have real money. Look, that's backwards. According to Federal Reserve data, the median American household has under $10,000 invested in the stock market. That means even reaching $50,000 invested already puts you ahead of a massive portion of the population. But why is that first milestone so brutal? Here's what most people don't realize. The first $50,000 isn't built by returns. It's built by behavior. Let's do some simple math. If you invest $50,000 and earn a 7% average annual return, roughly the long-term historical average of the S&P 500 after inflation, that money generates about $3,500 per year. That's nice, but it's not life-changing. Now, let's compare that to someone with $500,000 invested at the same 7%. That's $35,000 per year, without lifting a finger. This is where it gets really interesting. When you have $500,000 invested, the market can generate more in a year than most people save from their jobs. But to get to that point, you had to grind your way through the first $50,000 manually. No magic, no massive compounding, just discipline. And that's why it feels so hard. Let's talk about income. According to U.S. Census Bureau data, median individual income hovers around $45,000 to $50,000 per year. After taxes, rent or mortgage, food, transportation, insurance, and everything else, there's not much left. So if you want to invest $50,000, you're not relying on returns. You're relying on spending less than you make, increasing your income, delaying gratification. That's uncomfortable. It forces you to design your lifestyle intentionally instead of emotionally. Here's an analogy. Building your first $50,000 is like pushing a car that's out of gas. At the beginning, it barely moves. You're sweating. It feels pointless. You're questioning yourself. But once the engine catches, once momentum kicks in, it's a completely different experience. Compounding is the engine, but behavior is the push. Now let's talk about psychology. There are two major forces working against you during the first $50,000. First, present bias. Humans are wired to prioritize today over tomorrow. Behavioral economists like Richard Thaler have shown that we heavily discount future rewards. That $200 invested today doesn't feel as good as a $200 weekend trip. So most people choose the weekend. Second, lack of visible progress. When your portfolio is small, market gains look tiny. A 10% return on $2,000 is $200. It doesn't feel powerful. So you think, what's the point? Now you might be thinking, okay, but $50,000 just feels impossible right now. Look, it's not about doing it overnight. It's about designing the system that makes it inevitable. Let's break it down practically. Step 1. Calculate your monthly investment capacity. If you can invest $500 per month, that's $6,000 per year. At that rate, ignoring growth, it would take just over 8 years to hit $50,000. But with 7% annual returns, you'd likely hit it sooner, closer to 6.5 to 7 years. Now increase that to $1,000 per month. That's $12,000 per year. Now you're potentially hitting $50,000 in about 4 years. So the real question isn't, how do I magically get rich? It's, how do I increase my monthly investing power? This is where lifestyle design enters the picture. Most people try to save their way to wealth. High performers focus on earning their way there. According to IRS data, people in the top income brackets aren't just extreme savers. They have higher earning power. So if you're stuck, obsess less about cutting coffee and more about building skills. Can you negotiate your salary? Switch industries? Start a side business? Monetize a skill online? Even an extra $500 per month invested cuts years off your timeline. Here's what most people don't realize. The first $50,000 changes how you think about money permanently. Because once you see $50,000 working for you, generating returns, your relationship with spending shifts. You start asking, is this purchase worth the future growth I'm giving up? Spending becomes a trade-off against freedom. Let me tell you a quick story. I once spoke to someone who hit $50,000 invested after years of feeling behind. They said the weirdest part wasn't the number. It was confidence. They stopped panicking about small expenses. They stopped obsessing over every dip in the market. They started thinking long-term because they had proof they could follow through. That's the real milestone, not the money. Now let's address the fear. What if the market crashes while I'm building? It will. Historically, the market has experienced a correction of 10% or more roughly once every 1 to 2 years. But zoom out. Over long periods, broad indexes have trended upward despite wars, recessions, and crises. The first $50,000 teaches you emotional resilience. You learn to invest during fear. You learn to stay consistent. That emotional muscle is worth more than the returns. So, how do you actually make this happen? 3 clear actions. 1. Automate everything. Set up automatic transfers the day after your paycheck hits. Remove willpower from the equation. 2. Increase income with intention. Commit to one skill that increases earning power within the next 12 months. Certifications, freelancing, switching roles. Make it a project. 3. Raise your investment rate every time your income increases. If you get a $5,000 raise, don't inflate your lifestyle by $5,000. Invest at least half. That's how you accelerate. Look, the first $50,000 invested is hard because you're building discipline without immediate reward. You're pushing the car before the engine turns on. You're acting like the future version of yourself before you see proof. But that's exactly why it's the most important stage. Because once you cross that threshold, the math starts helping you. Compounding starts contributing. Momentum becomes real. And wealth stops feeling theoretical. It starts feeling inevitable. If this shifts how you see your financial journey, hit the subscribe button. Drop a comment below. How close are you to your first $50,000 invested? And more importantly, what's one action you're taking this month to move closer? Because progress doesn't start at $1 million. It starts with the first automated investment. It starts with the first uncomfortable decision. It starts with you deciding that your future freedom is worth more than short-term comfort. And trust me, once that engine turns on, you'll never look at money the same way again.